The Dictionary of Body Language, a field guide to human behavior by Joe Navarro, published in 2018. The Dictionary of Body Language by Joe Navarro, a body language expert and former FBI special agent, offers a compendium of more than 400 nonverbal cues that reveal people's emotional state and true intentions. The Dictionary of Body Language is the accompanying handbook to his international bestseller, What Every Body is Saying. Body language is an excellent source of unspoken information. It can show a range of emotions, such as anxiety, anger, happiness, and disdain. For example, if a woman greets a man effusively at a party, but turns her feet away from him, she does not like him, no matter how cheerful sounding her words. Meanwhile, if the man's eyebrows go up quickly, a gravity-defying behavior, he's happy to see her. Paying attention to subtle cues can be a very effective way to understand others. Nonverbal cues are instinctual, unconscious, and therefore reliable ways to understand human behavior. Many are linked to activity in the limbic system of the brain, which regulates basic emotions and drives. Some nonverbals are vestiges from earlier times as the human species evolved. For example, a man who touches the lower part of his neck close to the chest may be exhibiting fear. This gesture likely dates back to a time when humans had to stay alert for predatory animals who would target that area. Stress induces physiological reactions that result in nonverbal communication. For example, the skin around the neck may become flushed or red when a person is feeling especially tense. Becoming skilled at the art of decoding body language is helpful in many capacities. Law enforcement uses body language to discern deception. A person who is not telling the truth may give off several red flag type cues, like taking time to respond to a question or blinking an abnormal amount. Successful leaders use nonverbal cues as well. An effective leader will have verbal and nonverbal cues in alignment with each other. Ineffective leaders, however, might use authoritative words, but display signs of insecurity, such as surveying the audience to make sure their words are believed and received well. This kind of nonverbal cue would betray the confidence they are aiming to project. In everyday life, anyone can observe body language to pick up on situations that may need to be addressed, whether in the personal or professional sphere. A woman might become suspicious, for instance, when her husband's behavior changes. Perhaps he is holding her gaze for an unnaturally long time when answering a question about where he's been. She can then ask more pointed questions if she feels like he is not being forthcoming with her. Learning about body language gives people a better understanding of what their loved ones, colleagues, and strangers are feeling, wanting, and thinking. Learning about nonverbals can also empower people to present themselves in a favorable manner to others. A man who picks at his face during an important presentation is communicating to his audience that he feels insecure. A prospective employer might pick up on a job candidate's guardedness if she is crossing her arms during an interview. If she is seeking a job in which she will socialize and build relationships, it is important for her to be conscious of such body language. By learning the basics, anyone can become a keen observer of the nonverbal cues expressed in all areas of life. Such observations make life richer and can lead to better relationships and greater fulfillment overall. Key insights. 1. Most nonverbal cues are signs of either comfort or discomfort. 2. Certain gestures and behaviors carry different meanings in different cultures. 3. Body language can reveal deception. 4. Pacifying behaviors are self-soothing. 5. The face is capable of generating more than 4,000 expressions. 6. Becoming familiar with baseline behaviors helps in the identification of significant or abnormal cues. 7. Displaying different emotions on two different halves of the face indicates conflicting emotions. 8. Duping delight describes an inappropriate smirk during serious times and can indicate pleasure at having fooled others. Analysis Key Insight 1. Most nonverbal cues are signs of either comfort or discomfort. Certain gestures, such as exposing the wrists in conversation, demonstrate a feeling of ease. Others, such as lip pursing combined with a head nod, can show tension or a need for vigilance. These behaviors stem from the emotional centers of the brain and date back to humans' earliest survival and protective instincts. Whether positive or negative, these responses are often involuntary. Take the hypothetical example of Rebecca, a bartender whose job requires her to pay attention to instinctual body language and the messages it conveys. She's especially aware of couples at the bar. Rebecca can see when both people have the same interest level. If the two sit close, gaze intently at one another, and one party is twirling the end of her hair, Rebecca knows that they share mutual desire. But Rebecca takes special note when one person sends out signals of discomfort. Once, she saw a man and woman having a conversation, and she noticed that the woman was sitting back and holding her hands on her stomach. Even though the woman had a smile on her face, it was a tight smile and probably not authentic. The woman moved slightly back when the man would lean forward, indicating that something about his demeanor made her tense. In a case like this, Rebecca uses body language to make sure that the woman is okay and not in need of assistance. Rebecca might make eye contact with the woman and nod, as if to say, "Are you okay?" Rebecca's use of body language helps her maintain a safe environment at the bar. Key Insight 2. Certain gestures and behaviors carry different meanings in different cultures. Successful body language assessment sometimes depends on cultural context. For example, in certain cultures, it's acceptable to hold another person's gaze for a few seconds, while in others, holding someone's gaze for more than a second and a half could be viewed as offensive. Being sensitive to cultural variations in body language is especially important for those who work globally, as writer and international speaker Carol Kinsey Goman has learned. Throughout her career, she has paid attention to different norms and learned how to navigate them, a topic she covers in The Silent Language of Leaders, How Body Language Can Help or Hurt How You Lead. For example, giving someone the OK signal with the thumb and index finger pinched together is a positive gesture in the US, but not in France, where it would be interpreted as meaning that something had no value whatsoever. Goman observed an American business leader meet his Chinese colleagues for the first time and cringed as the American's enthusiastic, aggressive demeanor chipped away the goodwill that had been built between the two teams. The Chinese contingent found him to be ill-mannered and offensive. However, as Goman has learned throughout the years, even when there are cultural gaffes, a positive and respectful attitude can generate enough goodwill to smooth things over. Key Insight 3. Body language can reveal deception. Everyone is capable of being deceptive, though some have a harder time hiding it. Children are notoriously ineffective liars. They might say they didn't do something unfavorable while nodding their head in the affirmative. Adults get better at covering up lies, but when closely observed, it's easy to spot unease that could indicate deception. There's no clear-cut formula for detecting deception, as body language expert Judy James pointed out in a 2017 Daily Mail article. Still, James has identified 9 major tells that reveal probable lies. One of the signs is when someone pauses before answering a question, likely while trying to come up with a story. Another is being especially emphatic with hand gestures and eye contact, perhaps holding the other person's gaze in an almost aggressive way. This type of overwrought, insistent communication often reveals that the speaker has something to hide and is trying to distract the other person from figuring out the truth. Also, if people bring their hands to their face and cover their mouth, that could be a sign that they are trying to hide. All people use pacifying behaviors to find comfort in stressful moments, but if someone is especially fidgety or rocking back and forth, it might signal a lack of honesty. As James notes, certain gestures don't necessarily indicate lying, but learning how to observe people is the first step in uncovering the truth of the matter. Key Insight 4. Pacifying behaviors are self-soothing. The vast majority of hand-to-body gestures, such as stroking the chin, twirling the hair, and nail-biting, come from a need for comfort. These gestures, called pacifying behaviors, are known to have a psychological benefit. They may be exhibited during times of stress as a source of calm. They may also appear when there's a need to pass the time. Pacifying gestures might bring comfort, but they can also communicate insecurity and be a huge drawback in professional settings, as social psychologist Amy Cuddy argues. For example, touching the neck may bring some temporary calm, but it shows a distinct lack of confidence and anxiety, among other emotions. It also has a physiological effect, sparking a stress reaction in the brain, which leads to the production of cortisol, a stress hormone. This response sends a message that the person is being attacked and can result in a fight or flight reaction. To counter this reaction, Cuddy recommends casually placing an arm on an armrest or the back of a chair. Cuddy is also a proponent of adopting a strong stance, which she calls the Wonder Woman pose, in which the person lowers her shoulders and lifts her chin and chest and places her hands on her hips. This pose establishes confidence and authority. So another reaction to the desire to touch one's neck might be to assume the Wonder Woman pose, which can be modified if sitting down, and focus on what it feels like to expose the neck. Cuddy's tips can help to identify and correct behaviors that could sabotage an otherwise fruitful connection. Key Insight 5. The face is capable of generating more than 4,000 expressions. Humans are drawn to look at one another's faces, in part because the wide range of expression can communicate so much information, thanks to the 20 different muscle groups in the face. The forehead, in particular, has 6 major muscles that can be involved with a concerned expression in moments of stress and tension, such as a furrowed brow. Cosmetic procedures like Botox injections limit the full range of possible expressions and may make it difficult to discern emotion, as the forehead muscles are stiff. In some cases, Botox-induced facial changes can, in fact, improve emotional states. In a 2017 Forbes article, Annabelle Jones explores the notion that the cosmetic fix can have a welcome side effect: healing depression. Jones interviewed psychologist Richard Sherry, who explains that the change in facial expression has a ripple effect. When they are not projecting negative expressions of anger and sadness, people are received more warmly by others, which, in turn, boosts their psychological health. According to Dr. Michael Prager, looking physically happier via injections creates a more positive mental state. However, he notes that balance is key when cosmetically altering the face. He tends to do fewer injections around the eyes, as crow's feet are associated with smiling. Removing them lessens the ability of people to appear empathetic. In the case of injections, the change in mood comes from the outside in, which demonstrates how changing body language can impact not only a person's image, but also how that person feels about him or herself. Key Insight 6. Becoming familiar with baseline behaviors helps in the identification of significant or abnormal cues. Normal baseline behaviors, or those exhibited in non-stressful times, vary from person to person. Therefore, it's helpful to observe people on an ongoing basis and understand their expressions in context. For example, one person's forehead might sweat when the person is nervous, while another person's sweaty forehead doesn't indicate anything out of the ordinary. In personal relationships, it's easy to gauge baseline behavior because there's prior interpersonal experience. In criminal investigations, however, law enforcement officials need to establish baseline behaviors with potential suspects who are relatively new to them, according to Roger Strecker Sr., a trained behavioral analysis interrogator who worked for more than 3 decades in law enforcement. Strecker's strategy in criminal investigations is to first introduce casual conversation to see how the person communicates nonverbally without triggers of stress or tension. Discussing benign topics like the weather can help to gauge the person's basic body language. That way, the interviewer can get a sense of how the person appears normally. Any changes in behavior, such as touching the face more frequently or a marked change in eye contact, will become more apparent in contrast to the baseline behaviors. Strecker's long experience in detecting abnormal shifts in body language helps him to discern fairly quickly whether or not someone is lying. Key Insight 7. Displaying different emotions on 2 different halves of the face indicates conflicting emotions. Remarkably, the face can show different expressions on the left and right sides, perhaps revealing disgust while smiling. Emotional chirality, as this ability is called, is a rich source of information. Usually, the sentiment shown on the left half of the person's face shows the true emotion. In her 2011 TED Talk, How to Spot a Liar, Pamela Meyer explains that knowing how to detect conflicting emotions can help identify deception. She notes that professional behavioral analysts can successfully identify when someone is lying from facial and other nonverbal cues 90% of the time, while the public has a far lower rate of accuracy at 54%. Meyer shares many examples of conflicting emotions as expressed on the face. John Edwards, the one-time presidential candidate, shook his head in the affirmative while denying he fathered a child out of wedlock with his mistress. Meyer also notes that murderers are known for having quick expressions of sadness, regardless of whatever else they are trying to convey. Given the range of expressions the face is capable of displaying, Meyer feels it's most important to watch out for flashes of contempt. No matter what the setting, if someone shows contempt, they have already decided to disregard, perhaps callously, the person to whom they are directing the contempt. Whether or not that person tells a lie after the show of contempt is not important. That's a dangerous nonverbal cue, and anyone on the receiving end should leave immediately. Myers' talk demonstrates that the presence of conflicting emotions can be identified by careful, informed observation. Key Insight 8. Duping delight describes an inappropriate smirk during serious times and can indicate pleasure at having fooled others. Often, liars and criminals will smugly smile when they are in the midst of telling a lie. This frequently happens on occasions that call for seriousness, so the emergence of a smirk is striking. The smile shows that they are delighted because they believe others are buying their lies. In Emotions Revealed, Recognizing Faces and Feelings to Improve Communication and Emotional Life, Paul Ekman, the researcher who came up with the term duping delight, says that a person with this expression feels joy at having made a risky move and successfully exerting control over the other person by lying. Ekman cites the range of strong emotions that are often found in a single smirk. In addition to feeling elation, the liar might feel repulsion for the person being lied to. However, not all signals of duping delight indicate guilt. Ekman once observed an interrogation of a teenage boy who was accused of murdering his ex-girlfriend. The teen showed a duping delight smirk and other forms of contempt, but Ekman could find no other signs of deception. He realized later that the teen was simply rebellious and had issues with authority, so his display of duping delight did show contempt, but not for the murder victim. As Ekman's experience shows, duping delight can be a complicated expression, and while it is often seen in guilty individuals, a smirk on its own may not reveal anything incriminating. Important people. Joe Navarro is a seasoned behavioral analyst with more than 30 years of experience as an FBI special agent. He is the best-selling author of What Every Body is Saying. Author's style. The Dictionary of Body Language opens with an introduction in which Navarro explains how his lifelong interest in the topic developed when he moved to the U.S. from Cuba as a young boy who spoke little English and had to rely on body language to understand his environment. He provides further context for readers who want to begin studying body language and human behavior, including cultural differences and the brain's role in generating instinctual gestures in stressful moments. He recommends that readers act out each gesture to get a sense for how it looks and feels. The book is organized by different parts of the body, starting with the head and moving to the feet. At the outset of each section, Navarro provides a brief introduction, giving context to that particular area of the body and how it relates to human life and interactions. For example, he calls the eyes the visual gateway to the world around us. Within each section, he writes a short entry on different types of gestures. Occasionally, he provides cultural context when appropriate. The book ends with a conclusion as well as a bibliography. Author's perspective. As a non-English speaking refugee, Navarro had to pay attention to body language. From a young age, he noticed when people's gestures didn't match their words. As a teenager, he began writing down his observations on human behavior. He put his thoughts on index cards, wondering why someone rolled her eyes at a certain moment or what certain greeting styles revealed. To this day, Navarro jots his observations on index cards, and he has amassed thousands of them. As a student at Brigham Young University, Navarro studied psychology and human behavior. By the time he graduated, the FBI recruited him, which began his long career in law enforcement. In the latter half of his tenure, Navarro was part of an elite group, the National Security Behavioral Analysis Program, NSBAP. The Dictionary of Body Language is based on his experience using nonverbal communication to solve crimes and catch spies. Navarro's expertise has been honed by conducting more than 13,000 hours of interrogations and watching thousands of hours of surveillance videos.